This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. It's not just President Trump having problems discerning Nancy Pelosi's logic. Not just him. Nancy Pelosi yesterday seeming to walk back what she had said the day before coming out of the meeting with her socialist comrades about impeachment. In the last 48 hours, this is what Nancy Pelosi has said. I'm not quoting directly, but this is the gist of it. Trump is engaged in a cover-up. Right. He is obstructing justice actively in real time. But we're not on a path to impeachment, and the decision of whether or not to pursue that path should not be political. It's not just me having trouble making sense of that. It's not just President Trump. It's even members of her own caucus, including Steve KFC Cohen on the House Judiciary Committee, who's not only struggling with the logic, he doesn't know if Nancy Pelosi is a good American anymore.
Well, it's the majority of the members of the Judiciary Committee. The members of the Judiciary Committee are much more attuned to this issue, and it's our responsibility to protect the Constitution. That's where impeachment would lie. The majority of the caucus is not there yet. Nancy has a good perspective on her caucus, and she's a good mother hen. I think she's wrong in her strategy. I think by exposing the corruption of this administration, the Emoluments Clause violations, the obstruction of justice, all the things that he's done, the obstruction of Congress, and having it in the form of an impeachment inquiry or an impeachment hearing that the public will watch as they did during the Watergate Senate hearings, and they will come around to see that this man is not capable and to be president. Well, she needs to do, what's right. She says that she's doing this because of patriotism, not politics. And it's hard to see that. I mean, patriotism would say, jump into hell for a heavenly cause. And the fact is, when you have a constitution and you have a rule of law and it's being destroyed in a reckless gangster manner, you need to act. I think the only reason not to act is because of politics.
So Patriotism says act.
Wait. I mean, I can't hear his voice without thinking about Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Also, he said Nancy Pelosi is a good mother hen. Is it always foul references with this guy?
I know. Right.
For more on this topic, we're pleased to be joined by Jay Nordlinger, senior editor for National Review, music critic for the New Criterion. Jay, thanks for being with us again. Appreciate it.
Dan, I'm not going to put up with your foul language.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey,
I know.
Don't
take the easy ones. You're better than that. Yeah.
That was a good one. I must say I envy that. That was a very good one there.
Thank you very much. And so what about Nancy Pelosi? I understand she's trying to straddle the divide between the Cohens and the Nadlers and the AOCs and then the more politically savvy members of her caucus who are concerned about the electoral implications of pursuing this willy-nilly sans evidence the way that, most of the mouthpieces of the left have been pursuing it for the last 2 years. But is she and our House Democrats putting Trump in a stronger position because of sort of their confused position on what to do about him?
Yeah, they could be. She has a rambunctious caucus to handle. Remember she said a few years ago, I'm a lot of trouble, but I'm worth it. I think she might have had a point. It's hard to be Democratic speaker now. And as you say, she is trying to walk this tightrope, if that's the right image. She's a canny old pal. She knows a bit about impeachment. It was only 20 years ago, I was just thinking, that we did this with Clinton. The Republicans did this with Clinton, impeachment in the House and no chance of conviction in the Senate. That's how it would stand now. Also, we have an election, a presidential election, almost around the corner. Mm-hmm. And so she has to tamp down somehow or appease her restive members, while at the same time, I think in her mind, avoiding impeachment.
Well, do you think, though, she took it too far, though, when she said Trump's family should stage an intervention? I mean, I don't like to see old people fight, so tell me how this movie ends, please.
Well, there's been quite a war of rhetoric. It's been entertaining from one point of view. Trump put out, I guess, was a doctored video of Pelosi, and Pelosi's basically calling Trump a doddering old fool who needs help, and Trump is calling Pelosi crazy. She's now Crazy Nancy.
Mm-hmm.
It is kind of a tabloid moment in our politics, and I must say that after all this time, I don't exactly have my finger on the pulse. I'm not as sure as I used to be on what appeals to people and what doesn't. And it could be that most people kind of enjoy it and don't take it as seriously as I do. And people, I don't know about you guys, but people have been telling me for years, lighten up. And so it's really hard to know. I'm having a harder and harder time knowing when to be light, when to be heavy, so to speak.
Yeah, I hear you. I do. I feel your pain there. Also, too, just with the issue of a doctored up Pelosi video. Everything else about Pelosi is doctored up, so why not a video? Hanjay? Let me ask you.
Are you saying a little work? Are you saying that?
Exactly.
She wouldn't normally look like that.
It's just a little nip and tuck on the video I'm talking about. Let me ask you about the reaction from the D.C. press corps. It's sort of remarkable to me as well. Maybe I should lighten up on this topic too. But Trump delegates to Attorney General Barr the ability to declassify information consistent with the law per his discretion related to the 2016 investigation of all things Trump. So, and the press corps that routinely demands transparency and more information about the government they cover is all hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil about any of that material. They're offended. Adam Schiff calling it un-American that the Attorney General has been empowered to release more information to the public. I don't understand.
Yeah, well, you make a good point. There's a contradiction there. The Attorney General has been given pretty sweeping authority here, and I hope he uses it with great discretion. There is a legitimate concern, I think, intelligence agencies, intelligence gathering agencies, our FBI and so on. They have, the old saying goes, certain sources and methods, and some of that is probably not in the best interest of the public to release. Some of it probably is. Here you get into what I think Graham Greene called the human factor. And it takes very good human judgment and discretion. And I hope Barr does it right.
Yeah. By the way, this is why I like talking to like people who are cultural or cultured and like music editors. Because now, because it's going to rain and I'm not going to be able to play golf, I think I'm going to go back home and reread The Quiet American. Thanks for the Graham Greene reference, Jay Nordlinger. I appreciate that. That's why it's fun to talk to you. Other issue.
It's a bright sunny day in New York. You have rain out there?
Yeah, it's always raining here.
It hasn't stopped raining in the last 4 months. We're the new Seattle, haven't you heard?
English people would say good for the garden. I don't know. Grant Park will be beautiful, I gather. One of my favorite places.
Yeah, Amy's building an ark. Here, the other, we were just talking about this before you came on, the immigration issue. But perhaps these seemingly intractable issues that are really frustrating a lot of people, the trade imbroglio with China, as well as immigration, the humanitarian and security crisis at the border. Is it time for President Trump to make a national address and sort of frame one or both of those issues for the discussion over the next 18 months?
I think so. I really don't like the cliche Nixon goes to China, but I've applied it to Trump and immigration. As a conservative, I've long been allergic to the idea of a grand bargain on immigration, but I think he could, in statesmanlike fashion, pull something like that off, because he is so trusted, of course, by the restrictionist side. And if he could hammer out some sensible deal in which everyone gives a little and there's something relatively satisfactory to all, that would be remarkable. And I really think he's in a Nixon-China situation if he wanted to go for it. Pardon the cliches. Yeah. Do you have hope for America's big cities as we're broadcasting from one? There's this remarkable piece in the New York Times by one of their columnists, Farhad Manjoo, and he's specifically talking about zoning laws, but it's certainly a bigger issue than that. But he's a man of the left who writes a piece, America's cities are unlivable, blame wealthy liberals. And he talks about the disconnect between what progressives say
they are, and that they support, be welcoming to immigrants, be welcoming to refugees. But hey, you homeless veteran, move your tent. Is there an opportunity for Trump, sort of as you're describing on immigration, to also make an appeal to African American families and Latino families disproportionately located in major urban centers who are doing well economically under Trump, for some reconsideration of Republican leadership, not just his, but maybe at the local level too, where you have a situation now where I think the biggest city, most populous city in the country that has a Republican mayor is San Diego.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I would stress this, that the first duty of government is the physical safety of the people. And it's hard for cities to thrive when there's crime, when there's fear, when people have to look over their shoulder. And Giuliani in New York tackled this and ushered in a renaissance. It's amazing how great and dynamic and flourishing and marvelous cities can be when there isn't fear, when crime is in check. So I think that's the first order of business. And sort of conservative libertarian types like me are always talking about government getting out of the way. Well, it's a government's job to impose, to ensure a physical order. That I wouldn't contract out, and government ought to do it. And when it does, I'm starting to sound like a politician, but when it does, people do wonderful things. Thank you. People just do wonderful things when they're free to do so. But crime blocks everything. That's what makes cities so unpleasant. And when crime is cured, or at least strongly curbed, then look out. A place will zoom. I adore Chicago, and I love walking around in what I call Ferris Bueller land, all the nice parts, and I don't go to the unnice parts. And darn it, I know how more parts of Chicago, in my view, Chicago at large, ought to be Ferris Bueller land. I mean, I don't mean to be naive, but surely government can do better. As my old boss Bill Buckley would say, the job of government is not, this way he put it with disdain, free false teeth. No, how about safety in the streets?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, too, because some of the new census numbers that came out yesterday, and with respect to Chicago, for all of the talk of solidarity and marginality among minority populations and all the intersectional business we're getting from newly minted Mayor Lori Lightfoot, what's happened in Chicago is its black population has declined significantly, because you have black families on the south and west sides of the city that don't want to live in shooting galleries any more than anybody else would, and they're leaving. And actually the white population has ticked up a bit, and the Latino population has ticked up a bit in terms of the percentage that's represented, the percentage of the population that those groups represent. So it's sort of the ironic thing. All this time is spent talking about minority families, and in particular, with the policies that are pursued, you're driving black families from the city.
Well, people vote with their feet. And for years we've talked about white flight. There's also black flight. It's really human flight. No one wants to live in an atmosphere of fear. And people responsible for government ought to correct that, or at least address it. It's that nothing else can happen without that. Good things, the education and so on, music. These great things cannot happen absent that. That is the first order of business, the physical defense of the community, the physical defense of your people.
He is Jay
And if government can do just that, it's done a lot.
Yeah, no question. That's the first order of business here right now. Jay Nordlinger, senior editor for National Review, music critic for The New Criterion. Jay, thanks as always for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks a ton, you guys.
Take care.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
The stories you need to know to start your day. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560.